Turtle in Paradise, Chapter 17, A Hollywood Ending. Little orphan Annie and Terry Lee get into scrapes, but they always get rescued. Everything ends up okay in the end, but it turns out that real life is not like the funny pages. When morning comes, no one's knocking down the door or looking for us. It's still raining on and off and windy. Trees have been blown over and the ocean water is cloudy, the bottom churned up from the storm. There's debris everywhere and the key looks smaller, as if it's been swallowed up by the ocean. We sit in the shack, our stomachs growling. We're past talking. There's nothing to say. We all know it. Nobody's going to find us. We're done for. The brash, cocky members of the diaper gang are gone, and in their place are scared kids who dream of being in their mother's arms. Kermit's the worst, though. The boy who hates naps just sleeps and sleeps. Night falls again, and this time is almost a relief. I think it's easier for the boys to cry in the dark, but I'm dry-eyed. Crying wouldn't even touch the feeling inside of me. We press into each other for comfort, no complaining now. Sometime during those long hours, Beans reaches for my hand without a word, and I fall asleep with his fingers curled in mine. I dream that I'm sitting next to Shirley Temple. She isn't as cute in person as she is on screen, and she's definitely wearing too much lipstick. A hush falls over the room as the man on stage announces the next category. And for being the only girl stranded on an island with a bunch of boys and no chance of rescue, this year's award goes to... He opens the envelope and smiles. "Turtle," he says. The audience explodes into applause. I turn to Shirley Temple. "Sorry, Shirley. Maybe next year." As I make my way up to the podium, flashbulbs go off, blinding me, and I blink awake. Light is streaming in through the holes in the roof, and I'm lying on top of the diaper gang like a big pile of puppies, an elbow digging into my belly. A voice hollers, "Turtle! Kids!" The door crashes open, and Ollie's standing there, breathing hard. "Cap!" he shouts. "I found them!" Slowpoke shoulders past Ollie, relief spreading across his face, his eyes fixing on me. "Honey," he says, swooping me up in his arms. I bury my face in his warm, solid chest, and I know everything's going to be okay. The boys leap up around me. Slowpoke holds me out so he can look at me. "Oh, honey, your poor face." "You took so long, Pat." "What took you so long, Pat?" I ask. He makes a strangled noise. "We've been looking for you kids since your aunt raised the alarm, but we had to put in once the hurricane started blowing." They just went through a hurricane. "That was a hurricane?" I ask. "It sure was, Miss Turtle," Ollie says. "What about home?" Porkchops asks. "Key West came through it all right," Ollie says and hesitates. "But the word is the upper keys got hit hard." Kermit blanches. "Poppy!" Slowpoke pats him on the head. "He's fine, Kermit. He wasn't even there when it hit. He came back because he heard that you kids were missing. You probably saved his life." We walk out of the shack and see a motorboat in the water. A man is standing on shore chewing on a cigar. "I seem to be missing a boat," Johnny Cake says. "Oh, we're in for it now, fellas," Ira says under his breath. The rum runner walks over to us, slips off his fine white linen jacket, and wraps it around my shoulders. He tips my chin up. "You look like you could use a leche, sweet cheeks." "It wasn't us, Johnny Cakes," Bean says. "That's interesting," Johnny Cake says, "because Killy saw you taking it." "You'd believe a horse killer over us?" Beans blusters. "I'd believe an honest man over you," Johnny Cake says. Beans bites his lip. I look over at Slowpoke. "How'd you figure out we came here?" "The kid who's always tagging around after you," he says. "You mean Too Bad?" Porkchops asks. Ollie nods. "He heard you talking about digging up treasure on this key." "We were saved by Killy and Too Bad?" Porkchop smacks his head. We're never going to live this down, fellas." Slowpoke scolds us. "Your mothers have all been worried sick. What were you kids thinking?" "We were thinking about this," Bean says, and he thrusts out the sack. The gold coins spill out. Slowpoke's jaw drops so far I'm surprised it doesn't hit the ground. "I don't believe it, Cap," Ollie says. "We're not sharing one thin dime with you," Porkchop says with a trace of his old self. Johnny Cakes puts a hand on Porkchop's shoulder and squeezes. "We'll see about that." It seems like everybody and their cousin is waiting for us on the docks. Even Nana Philly is there, sitting in the back of a wagon. She smiles when she sees me, although Bean swears I imagined it. Smiled at a kid, he says? The best sight turns out to be Uncle Vernon wearing a scruffy beard. The news coming in from up north is terrible. They're saying a lot of folks are dead from the hurricane, and many of them the men who'd been working on the overseas highway. But not Uncle Vernon. It's probably the only time in history a bunch of lying, stealing, no good kids actually saved someone's life. The hurricane made headlines, but so did we. We're eating ice cream on the front porch, and we're Jimmy's best customers now. Kermit is running down Curry Lane, waving a newspaper. "We made the front page," he shouts. "Gang of charming kids finds pirate treasure loot worth $20,000. "Charming," I say to Beans. "Guess they never met you." "Why'd they say gang?" Ira says. "It's diaper gang. 2 words. My eyes are closed. "Why'd they print that photo?" Kermit asks. "Better than with your eyes open," Bean says. "Not everyone's happy about our good fortune, though. It ain't fair. I would have gotten all your marbles if you had died," Buddy complained. "Sorry about that, Buddy," Kermit says. Jelly walks out his front door. "Well, if it ain't the diaper gang," he says. "That a new wagon?" "It sure is, Jelly," Ira says, stepping back to reveal a brand new wagon. "The boys don't have to work for candy now that they're rich, but they do it anyway." Beans claims the babies need them. We'd been back in Key West for a few days when an antique dealer fella appeared and paid $20,000 cash on the spot for the treasure. After Johnny Cakes was paid back for his lost boat, and the rest of the money was split up 6 ways between me, Kermit, Beans, Porkchop, Ira, and Nana Philly. After all, it was her map, even if she didn't know about it in the first place. She already bought a new hat, and Miss B says she wants to get her piano fixed. My money's waiting for me in the bank. Except for what I used to buy, a new pair of shoes. Strange as it sounds, I'm having a hard time getting used to wearing them. They're pretty as a postcard, but they pinch my toes, and my feet are hot and sweaty. "Got a new member in your little gang, I see," Jelly says, looking at Too Bad, who's straightening up the blankets in the wagon. Too Bad beams from ear to ear. "That's right. I'm in the diaper gang now. I saved their lives." Porkchop groans as if the idea still pains him. "And guess what?" Too Bad exclaims. "I know the secret formula. It's cornstarch." "Too Bad!" Porkchop hollers. "First new rule of diaper gang is shut up already." Too Bad winces. Sorry." "Cornstarch," I echo. Your secret diaper rash formula is cornstarch?" "Nobody would believe us if we told them," Kermit says. Aunt Minnie comes walking down the lane. "I didn't have an accident, Ma," Buddy says quickly, although he's squeezing his legs together. "The day's young, Buddy," she says, and looks at me. "Turtle, can you come inside for a moment, please?" I can't tell if Aunt Minnie is still mad at me or not, but when we got back to Key West after the storm, her eyes were red like she had been crying for a long time, and she gave me a quick hug and then shook me so hard that my teeth rattled in my head. "Don't you ever scare me like that again. You're the one who's supposed to have some sense," she said. I go into the kitchen and she tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. "I just came from Miss Lowe's," she said. "Your mother called. She is in Miami. She'll be here soon as she can get a boat in." My heart leaps. I would have gotten stranded on an island a whole lot sooner if I had known that would make her come get me. My aunt purses her lips. "Your cat can come back here if you would like." "Really?" She looks embarrassed. "You were right. It wasn't Smokey. When you children were on that key, another cat snuck in here and made a mess." "The cat happened to look like a skunk?" I ask. She pauses and then says, "I should have believed you." "I know," I say, and she laughs. "I'm not sure Nana Philly's going to want to give Smokey back," I say. She's sweet on her. "Maybe she can trade Buddy for Smokey," Aunt Minnie says and grins wryly. "At least until he's toilet trained." I'm at Pepe's drinking a leche with Johnny Cakes and the writer fella recounting our adventure. "What happened next?" the writer asked me, smoothing his mustache. I leaned forward. "That's when the rats showed up, Mr. Hemingway." His eyes bulge out. "Rats? Hundreds of them, and they were crawling all over us. Worst thing you ever saw. Slowpoke strolls up. Hundreds of rats, you say? Strange how that didn't make it into any of the newspaper accounts, he muses. Writers never get the story right, I say. Slowpoke laughs and pops a wide-brimmed hat on my head. Keep your pretty face from getting burned. Kermit runs up to our table. Turtle, Turtle, he says. What's the big hurry, Kermit? Johnny Cakes asks. Kermit starts coughing. Easy there, son, Slowpoke says, handing him a leche. Kermit gulps the coffee and then looks at me. Turtle, your mother is here. Sadie Bell's here? Slowpoke says. She's at the house. Curry Lane has never seemed longer than when I'm running down it towards Mama. My hat flies off. I can't be bothered to stop. Nothing's going to keep me from my mother. Turtle, Mama cries. She rushes down the steps of the porch and I'm in her arms and I'm home again. Oh, baby, she says, and stands back, looking me up and down. Just look at you. You're so tan. I missed you, Mama, I say. A deep voice says, Miss me too, Princess? And Archie's walking out the front door wearing a Panama hat. Archie, I cry and run to him. He picks me up and twirls me around, putting his Panama hat on my head. You can call me Daddy now, he says. You got married? I gasp. I look back at Mama and she waves her hand at me, a thin gold ring glinting in the sun. She's smiling so wide she's practically glowing. Oh, Mama, I say, and I feel her happiness like my own. It's as if a weight has been lifted off my heart, and for the first time in my life, I can finally breathe. Archie sets me down looking serious. Nothing like a tragedy to make you realize what's important. Soon as your mother told me what happened, we started driving. Beans, who's sitting on the porch swing, says, Say, how's your pal Mr. Idget doing anyhow? His hair grow in yet? Slowpoke is loping down the lane. His eyes light up when he sees Mama. Sadie Bell, Slowpoke says and smiles. It's been a long time. Slowpoke, Mama says, going still. Mama, I say, tugging on her arm, Slowpoke's the one that rescued us. He is? She asks. Archie wraps an arm around my shoulder and looks at Slowpoke. In that case, I owe you a debt, sir, for looking out for our little girl here. Slowpoke's smile slips. This is Archie, Mama says. My husband. You're married? Slowpoke asks. Newlyweds, Archie says and sticks his hand out to Slowpoke. Archie Meeks, pleased to meet you. Slowpoke doesn't shake his hand. Huh, Slowpoke says in a hollow voice. Too late again. And then he turns and walks quickly down the lane. What a funny fella, Archie says with a laugh. And what kind of name is Slowpoke? I look up at Mama. What did he mean, again? Nothing, I'm sure, she says, and smiles a little too brightly, and then she links her arm in mine and says, Come on, baby, I'm dying to show Archie Duval Street. It's like the happy ending of a Hollywood picture. Archie and Mama and me strolling arm in arm along Duval Street, a perfect family. On the way down here, we passed a nice piece of land in Georgia, Archie says to me. Georgia, I say. Good lot. Peach trees, a little brook, the perfect place for the Bellwood, Mama finishes. Took the words right out of my mouth, he says. What about Mrs. Butnick, I ask. I quit, Mama announced with a laugh. No more scrubbing floors for me. We'll be hiring the help from now on. Thank you very much, Archie says. Long as they're nice to the housekeeper's kids, I say. Archie looks down at me from under his Panama hat. I told you we'd be here someday, Princess. Duval Street, I ask. He smiles. Easy Street.